Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Thailand and Cambodia erupt in daily clashes as a century-old border crisis feud reunites. Macron and Starmer move to recognize a Palestinian state shaking global diplomacy. ICE drops $1 billion to incarcerate and cage 5,000 illegal immigrants at Fort Bliss in a secretive expansion. A and this is behind a lot of the incarceration that a lot of the violent illegal immigrants that we have in our country. Trump also learned that his name appears in the Epstein files before the DOJ locks them and close the doors on the files. And Trump news is what they don't want you to see. But we're going to reveal some possible outcomes that Trump may be facing if his So this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get right into it because there's a lot of hot news for your news update this morning. And first off, we're going to start off with the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Now, I've been to both countries, but I've only been to the border of Cambodia, but I've been to Thailand a couple of times. And Thailand is a very beautiful country, just as well as some parts of Cambodia. I've been to Vietnam as well. So a lot of those countries really border themselves, and we'll get into the regional lines here so you guys can have context of why this conflict, while a lot of international powers are stating that these are some of the most peaceful countries, but this lifelong conflict that started by the way of European powers. And I think that's important to note as well because of the colonizing lines that they drew a long time ago. But there have been border disputes escalated rapidly to armed conflict that started just a couple of days ago with troops launching airstrikes on Cambodian positions near Pre Van Heer, resulting in at least 14 people dead. And majority of those people were civilians and hundreds of space and villages evacuated. This is the worst violence between the two Asian neighbors in over a decade, rooted in a century-old territorial dispute. And we're going to kind of just jump right into some of the key facts that you guys really need to know. It states here that Bangkok are fighting over territory disputed since colonial power France drew the border between them more than a century ago. And that also goes to state that a lot of colonial powers back in the day have divided people with the same ancestry, excuse me. When I look at the region of Nepal, Bangladesh, India, and even some regards of Pakistan, all of those people resemble, in some cases, when you're talking about their phenotypes, their historical references, their ancestry of India. But nonetheless, we understand that India was colonized for roughly 100 years or so by Great Britain. Now, it states here that more than a dozen people have been reported killed and more than 100,000 civilians evacuated since fighting began on Thursday. Thailand's total of 361,000 active duty personnel spread across all branches of the kingdom's military is 3 times of Cambodia's military. And those troops have at their disposal weaponry their Cambodian counterparts can only dream of. And don't forget that Thailand is an ally of America. And they have one of the most well-equipped air forces in the world. It goes on to state here that Thailand has a large, well-funded military, and its air force is one of the best equipped and trained in Southeast Asia. And the International Institute of Strategic Studies wrote in its military balance of 2025, look at the world's armed forces. Let me show you the difference in populations, because I think a lot of times these really small details will help people to paint a bigger picture of who's favored to win any conflict in that particular region when we're referencing these two countries. So Thailand's population is roughly 70 million people versus Cambodia's 17 million people. This is like an elephant stepping on an ant. That's what we're talking about. And we're looking at the size. It seems as though that Thailand, let me get this out the way, that Thailand is roughly 2 sizes and a half, 2 sizes and a quarter bigger than Cambodia. Because here's the Cambodian line that borders Vietnam. Laos. This borders Laos right here to the north. and then it borders Vietnam to the east. Okay, and then to the south, that's also Vietnam, because Vietnam is a very narrow country, but it goes up this entire seaport here to Hanoi, to the northern part of Vietnam that borders Laos. It also borders China as well. So when we look at this, you look at Thailand here, you look at the landmass. Okay, we're just doing a really quick glance here of the two land masses, and then 70 million people versus 17 million people. Thailand has a well-equipped military 3 times the size of Cambodia, and they have a very advanced air force in regards to Cambodia's air force. So again, we already know that world powers are calling in for Thailand to stop. But with that being said, Thailand has responded and stated that they will not stop. They told world leaders and world powers that they will not stop the bombardment of Cambodia because of this land. It reminds me again, now all of these conflicts and wars have been rumbling for quite some time. Not if that Donald Trump is in office, but I believe certain presidents kept a lot of these conflicts at bay. And now that President Trump is in office, it seems as though China may even go to war or start conflicts with Taiwan over a piece of land. Now, I hope that North Korea doesn't get any funny ideas to try to attack South Korea. But I will tell you this: there's been reports that China has been sneaking drone engines over to Russia against their fight against Ukraine. And this has just been discovered in the past day or so, that they have actually been sneaking not smothering, ladies and gentlemen, they have been smuggling drone engines into Russia. So again, how's that going to fracture the ties between America and China? How's that already going to deepen the sanctions that we have with Russia? Now, as more information come out, I will definitely keep you guys updated. Now, it states here that 9 more die of malnutrition in Gaza. The health ministry says it's Israel to allow foreign aid airdrops. Now they're saying that if you're going to give aid to Gaza and to the Palestinian refugees that are in that region, that has nothing to do with Hamas. That has nothing to do with Hamas. Because now you have French President Macron has announced that France will formally recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September. And UK Prime Minister Starmer is under mounting cabinet pressure, including from Germany Merz, to follow suit. And Starmer has emphasized that the Palestinian right to statehood, linking recognition to ceasefire and peace process conditions. I mean, why do these Western powers didn't recognize Palestine as a state in the first place? Because they deem it as a third world country, and you have to be at least second world or first world in order to be deemed a Palestinian state. We've been doing this for quite some time. Don't forget that Israel is a new country. Israel has been was constructed in 1948. Before Israel took over that landmass, that was Palestine or Philistine. Now they're only allowing airdrops. Now, that poses a very, very large problem. Instead of having trucks to come in and you're just checking the trucks and the aid workers are passing out resources to family and individuals and having some sort of organization, now they're going to make this even far worse because they're just airdropping supplies. What is that going to do? That's going to start factions in the region. That's going to start militias in the region, because if I'm strong and I get with other strong people, then we can kill, harm, or guard away people and take the resources and then extort our own people, because during desperate times, people resort to desperate measures. It's simple as it be. I don't. Now, granted, they need these resources, and hopefully that there is some organizers in the region. There are some people that the public can trust, and they can hand out a lot of these resources, whether it be food and fresh water, shelter, camping materials, etc. Because as you can tell, this is a very demolished state, ladies and gentlemen. The Gaza is a very demolished state. This place is not fit for anyone to live, but they cannot leave. It's all in shambles and rubbles. This is an actual war zone where civilians are living at, but they can't leave because they're not allowed to leave. This is a major, major, major humanitarian problem. And we keep getting deflected of all these other conflicts that are occurring in the region. It just seems as though Iran, Pakistan, all these other countries are just starting conflicts because it's that time. They have the right man in office. He's doing all the right things, it seems to be, in some regards, to America. But on the international front, it seems as though that the world is at war. And every time we look at how World War III was going to start it, you know, there's certain depictions of World War III that will pop inside of our minds. We think it is going to be Iran and Russia and China against America and our allies. But what if we're already in a state of World War III because of all the different conflicts? Not that we have 4 or 5 Western country allies together fighting against Russia, China, India, and all these other countries. Okay, I'm just throwing in some names. That's arbitrary, ladies and gentlemen. But I just want you guys to think about that all together, because this is crazy right now. There's a lot of things going on. And by the way, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has awarded a 15-year, $1 billion contract to a private prison firm to build and operate a facility at Fort Bliss, Texas, capable of holding up to 5,000 adult detainees. And the plan faces some scrutiny as part of Trump-era expansion of immigration enforcement using military basement. And this is only the first. They also have plans at Fort Dix, maybe even El Paso base. So again, there's billions of dollars being forked out from the American government to, again, mass deportate and detain illegal immigrants. And we're not just talking about the violent ones, because do not forget, all illegal immigrants have broken some form of immigration law. Okay, and not all of them are violent. Okay, but they have broken the law if they are illegal. That is coincides with one another. Okay. It also states here that Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy AG Todd Blanchie informed President Trump that his name appeared multiple times in the Justice Department's unreleased Jeffrey Epstein files. Though no wrongdoing is alleged, again, no wrongdoing is alleged, the White House has not denied the revelation, and that the DOJ decided not to release further documents due to sensitive content. What could be that sensitive content that they're referring to? What could be that sensitive content that they're referring to? So let's jump right in. This is me if I was President Trump, knowing that my name was in the Epstein files. I would sit alone where the flickering desk lamp will cast long shadows across stacks of legal briefs. And my heart will be pounding as I reread the brief summary that AG Pam Bondi notified me in May that my name appeared multiple times in the Epstein files. Now, don't forget some of Trump's recent acts on national TV in June and July states that there could be some implication of wrongdoing. But nonetheless, I'm President Trump, and I have no explanation. I have no qualifiers. It's stark, it's real, and it's explosive. I feel the very air tighten, because if those files, hundreds of gigabytes of documents, include flight logs, contact books, and deeply sensitive material, if they could include more than just social ties, what then? I thought being named in a file was just procedural, an association, no less. Everyone knows that I was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone knows that I'm an associate with Jeffrey Epstein. But what could this mean? But what if some of those files allege illegal activity with minors? So I closed my eyes The question's hammering. What if raw victim testimony ties my name to actions beyond mere presence? What if graphic evidence exists, images or videos now sealed under privacy laws? What if the DOJ knew but delayed release to protect my reputation? The silence in the room is deafening. I feel trapped by what could be true. The name appearance isn't admission, but public imagination will fill the gap. The political storm will erupt by invitations only, and those files contain allegations, rumors, unverified hearsay referencing hundreds of high-profile individuals. And if those allegations involve children, no matter how twisted or false, they're irreversible. The public, the media, the opposition, they won't wait for nuance. So I start to pace. I envision the headlines. Trump in the Epstein files. Graphic allegations of child abuse surface. The most heinous things that people can think of, they would think about me and all the decisions that I made as president and before I was president. My legacy will be tarnished. Grand jury records to Gallistine Maxwell may reveal Trump's role. So I anticipate the legal hustle, emergency letters, damage control. Are there non-disclosure arguments, friendships to call on? Allies in Congress do I have? But it's gone way beyond politics. It's about exposure, vulnerability, more reckoning. So if this is true, if even a shred of credible evidence exists, I'm finished. I feel the weight of the unknown. Once the files are public or forced out, they enter the public domain, and all trust will erode from my inner circle. Even supporters will question motives. Cover up. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Steve Bannon. Will they turn their back on me as they have before? Allegations spin out of control. This isn't about politics anymore. This is about my survival, my legal, reputational, and personal. If what becomes reality, criminal exposure, civil lawsuits, political implosion, institutional backlash, and public outcry, and of course, my legacy destroyed. So, according to the multiple news reports, fam, that we've been seeing, Pam Bondi and Todd Blanchard informed President Trump in May that his name appeared multiple times in the Epstein investigation documents viewed by the DOJ and FBI, and many individuals were included. Mentions, not evidence of wrongdoing, but highly damaging in public perception. The files contain material that the DOJ cited as reasons not to release further documents because of child pornography, victim identity, and graphic content. So who are in the files and what they have been doing? That is what the public wants to know. So President Trump, according to the AG, Pam Bondi, that his name was in the Epstein files in May. Then we have reports of President Trump publicly stating, we're still talking about Epstein, that creep. This creep has been a known associate and friend of yours from quite some times. And there's multiple times that your name appeared in the report. Now, that doesn't implement, there's no evidence, supposedly, of any wrongdoing, supposedly. But then again, there is evidence, like Feinstein Maxwell is in prison for 20 years for child trafficking that was directly linked to Jeffrey Epstein. So again, why aren't they releasing the files? Don't forget that they passed a vote. The GOP and the liberals both agreed that the Epstein files should be subpoenaed. So now they're about to subpoena the files, but that doesn't mean that's going to be released to the public. That doesn't mean that another faction of our government is going to be privy to the information in the Epstein files. And we're waiting for it, because the more factions within our government that have access to these Epstein files, is a better chance of it being leaked to the public. WikiLeaks, somebody need to release these files, authenticate them, verify them, but release the official files of Epstein. Now, granted, Some people will state that President Trump is guilty by association. But nobody really knows what's in the Epstein files except the government officials. And this is just, what if Trump is named and he's implicated in crimes against children? What if? If this is true, if Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files and they include evidence of illegal activity involving children, what happened next is seismic, not just political, but morally, legally, and historically. Because again, as I told you, he was told this information in May by Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy, Todd Blanchie, that explicitly informed Trump that his name appeared multiple times in internal DOJ files on Jeffrey Epstein. And we're not talking about hearsay. They briefed him, but they also concluded it wasn't sufficient to pursue further actions, or they say that they isn't. If there's evidence that Trump was knowingly involved in or witnessed illegal activity with minors that plunges us into criminal territory, possibly federal investigations, charges of child endangerment, trafficking, or even conspiracy, then I'm going to bring you back full circle. What are you going to do about Obama if his allegations that he collude to trump up evidence to state that President Trump was colluding with Russia to win the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton? What if the allegations are true that President Obama tried to start a coup and trump up false evidence and records that President Trump was colluding with Russia to take over the 2016 election, and then he wanted to overthrow President Trump so Hillary Clinton can be in place? All of them should be incarcerated if all of these so-called allegations or the remnants and rhetoric is true. All of them. As a matter of fact, put President Trump and President Obama right beside each other. And this is why right here on Black Logic, ladies and gentlemen, you should never pick a side. You should always pick the truth. Yeah, I can like some of the things that President Trump is doing. I like some of the things that President Obama was doing. When it comes to the people, people should always be over the government, even though people are in the government. But once they get in these high places and these high offices, I feel as though that the majority of them are contaminated by power. I believe they are somehow coerced of wrongdoings. They are forced to compromise themselves and their beliefs. We need to eradicate corruption from our government at the highest level. And if any of these so-called allegations or the lack thereof evidence, but there is evidence, then whoever's involved in these files, for the victims, for the American people, for the children, should be incarcerated. And they should be prosecuted at the highest extent of the law. And I think that's the most daunting thing. So tonight at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there will be no Trump bros, because Obama did it in 2011 and Biden did it in 2024. But there will be no Trump bros. But nonetheless, AG alerted Trump his name appeared in the Epstein files. They alerted him that his name is in the Epstein files. And let me tell you this. The public fallout will be monumental and his legacy destroyed, because his political base will be absolutely fractured. The mega crowd, I don't know what they would name it. Make America legal again. Mala. That don't sound right. There's not a good ring to it. But his legacy, irrevocable stain. He will be stained forever. He's already the most well-known man in the world. And every previous denial that Trump has made, every previous denial and defamation lawsuit he filed against media outlets will crumble under the weight of credibility. Trump may be broke after this if this is true. Do I want this to be true? Absolutely not. Not because of President Trump, because of the victims. I hope that President Trump is not a part of the despicable acts that Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and even Trump himself could have been a part of. Now, don't forget Maxwell, he's going to be in jail for the next 20 years. And they stated while he was being questioned that he answered every question that they had. But I really want you guys to think about this, because if transcripts or grand jury remarks tie him to abuse or exploitation of men or women, and especially children, history won't forget this. Because when we speak about the legality of things, the DOJ's refusal to release more files due to the presence of sensitive content, including child pornography material and victim data, is now suspect. They said they won't reveal anything more, citing victims' privacy. But critics argue that this shields powerful people, including Trump, from scrutiny. Political House committees are subpoenaing records from the DOJ as we speak. I just reported on this yesterday. And Ghislaine Maxwell for testimony, and bipartisan support is brewing to force transparency with lawmakers, citing the fact that Trump's name surfaced in the files multiple times. And if there is any sort of graphic evidence, audio, video, or firsthand allegations, believe me that this shark whale will echo across every major institution. I'm talking about resignation, even impeachments, not just of Trump, but possibility of AG Bondi, FBI official Kash Patel, who blocked the release, anyone complicit. What do we do now? We demand full release. Victims redacted, but names and stick figures revealed. Public pressure must become relentless. Every media outlet, every oversight body must demand answers. Trump denials are now hollow echoes. Fake news, he says. I didn't do anything. But Bondi actually told him that his name was in the files. He could have ignored it. The question now is, did he lie about the scale of his relationship with Epstein? Did he cover up any involvement? If authorities found irrefutable proof that the consequences are unthinkable, not just for Trump, but for the institutions that enable the silence, we'll need accountability at every level, will we not? Watch this space right here on Black Logic, because if Trump's presence in the Epstein files include illegal child-related activity, the system won't survive as it is today. And this is the reason why I believe that they are trying to prevent the files to be released, because there's something damaging to the U.S. government. Now, even though Trump is the hottest topic right now, that his name, but it could be other powerful, influential, political, billionaire businessmen in these files that will not only fracture American business, not only fracture the American economy, not only fracture the American government, but it will cut the head off the snake. This will rock America if we have well-known, well-to-do people in these files dealing with illegal child activity. There's a strong possibility, ladies and gentlemen. And I just reported on this yesterday. And again, this has resurfaced. Because, again, the public, you and I, we want to know the truth. Why? What is this going to prove? This is going to prove that we have very demonic people in our government, that we have very demonic people that have been involved with explicit exploitation of children and other innocent people. And they don't want to release the victim names, redact the victims, but the perpetrators, the victims accused, they are not innocent. They are not victims. Everything can't be fake news. Everything cannot be a lie. Now, Cash Patel stated that in these files, there's nothing that we want. He stated that on the Joe Rogan podcast, that there's nothing that we want. Well, if the president named, and I grant, don't get me wrong, family, don't get me wrong, folks. Of course, his name was in the Epstein files. He was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. On multiple occasions, they've been seen together. Either Jeffrey Epstein going to the Trump Towers or them at banquets and parties and get-togethers and events and functions. They've been seen multiple times together. They are well-known associates, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody know that they are associates. Everybody know that they are connected. But that doesn't mean that President Trump did anything egregious, did anything illegal, did anything illegal activity with children. Unless we have evidence to prove it. So I'm not hanging out President Obama. I'm not hanging out President Trump. But I can tell you one thing. You can only hide in the dark for so long until the truth comes out.